What's a hobby you picked up as an adult? Running. I've run 10 half marathons. I didn't win, but I finished. Homebrewing. It's a lot of fun. But be advised, it's not something you get into to save money on beer. I almost cackle when people ask me that. Piano. Bought a crappy little £80 keyboard when I was 21 because something was just calling me towards it. Been teaching myself for a few years and well, I'm not great, but I've surprised myself at what I've managed to learn. Still can't read music though, lol. I had to sell my digital piano last year for an international move, and once I settled into the new apartment, bought another and realized no future dwelling of mine will feel like home until there's a piano there. Woodworking. Aquariums and fish keeping. Spending way too much money on Warhammer miniatures, loudly crying, loudly crying, loudly crying, loudly crying, loudly crying, loudly crying. I've just turned 52 and within the last 6 weeks I've taken up woodworking and meat smoking. Pretty cliched. Plants and cooking. Fencing. It's great exercise and so fun. I even competed in the nationals. Video games, because I can finally afford them. Building Legos. Sure, I did it when I was a kid, but it feels a lot more satisfying now that I am older. Afternoon naps. Board games. I have a monthly group where we get together, get some food and play board games while drinking. It's a great way to have fun at home. We started during COVID and we've kept it going since. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Painting with oils. My grandpa was a painter, and he started by following along with Bob Ross. I picked up a brush for the first time a few years ago and did the same thing. I wish I would have taken it up sooner. Swimming. Knitting. Had to stop and sell due to my declining health and finances going to shit. But I was learning the Celtic lever harp as an adult. Baking. I married into a family of bakers and good chefs. They even did their own competitions for fun. So I had to learn. Turns out I'm pretty good. And I'm to only who's successfully made macaroons. Strength training. Mountain biking. I enjoy complaining about anything and everything. Reading. I couldn't read a book to save my life when I was growing up. I could kinda get through little books, like the Goosebumps series, but to sit and read a detailed novel was not something I could do. It wasn't until I was in my early 20s and pregnant that I got into my first really big book. Now I love reading. I especially love reading long fantasy or sci-fi novels. Before, I would have such a hard time remembering what I read, and now I have characters just sitting in my mind waiting for me to finish their stories. American football. I live in England and got into it after COVID lockdowns. My friend had been trying to get me to play for years, but I was too busy, so I finally took the plunge and haven't looked back. I didn't realize how much I missed team sport, and just after COVID this filled a massive void in my social life. It's also made me think I need to do things a bit more, so I'm also learning to play the guitar. I joined an astronomy club that drinks a lot. Feels kind of like a hobby. Archery, blacksmithing, powerlifting. I basically pivoted from wizard to fighter. Knitting and crocheting. Scuba diving. Got certified for the GF before a trip. Ended up enjoying it. 14 dives so far. Houses are too expensive, so I got into the fixer-upper mood. And now my hobbies are restoring a 200-year-old half-timbered house with self-made clay mortar and limestone. Also cutting our own wood because heating prices skyrocketed. Leatherworking. You can easily start the hobby with a cheap set of usable tools and scrap materials to practice. Techniques for less than $50. Karate and boxing. Growing mushrooms and #X200B. The fun kind. Cooking and baking. Decorating. I've always enjoyed cooking, made most of the meals for the household and such, but it's only in the last year or so that I've started really challenging myself and starting making stuff just for the fun of it rather than because it needs to be done. Lots of things. Serious ones. Climbing. Rock and alpine. Skiing. Mainly backcountry. Canyoneering. Sea kayaking. And photography of all of the above. Also, all of those require camping one way or another. People watching. I know. It's weird. Photography. I had a camera in college but didn't do much with it. Once I had kids. Pre-cell phones. I got into it. Now it's a good American money-sucking pastime. 30 years later. I'm just getting good at it. Playing D&D. Yes. I have heard of the new Hasbro, WOTC nonsense. Yes. I watch Critical Role and I love them. I got fired a while back. That day I took the trash out and found a bike in the dumpster. I'm now pretty into cycling. Edit. I did ask around at cycling shops and in cycling communities to see if anyone recognized it as someone's